is made possible through a grant from the Five Wings Arts Council. I'm like kind of cutting off my head here. I gotta go down. From the Five Wings Arts Council, thanks to a legislative appropriation from the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund to the Wadena County Historical Society. This month, Bookends will feature the work of poet Lina Belar, whose most recent book is titled At the Crossroads. The book begins with a celebration of Minnesota, her adopted homeland, and introduces you to Slovenia, where her father was raised. Lina was the editor of 2 collections of poetry from regional writers during the pandemic. She is recently retired director of the Wadena County Historical Society, which collects and preserves the stories of Wadena County, an area that has been at the crossroads of history since the North American continent was inhabited. You can also see selections of her poetry online at www.linabelar.com. The Zoom recording of this program will be available on YouTube. And if you have questions for today's author, feel free to put the message in chat if you're with us on Zoom, or we'll have question and answers here in the room. Now let's welcome poet, essayist, and editor, Lina Belar.
Thank you. And thank you for your patience. Every time we do this, it's a different technical issue. So we might just have to go back to clay tablets. They would take longer to set, but they would be less apt to change. Yeah. So I was just going to read some selections. My book is called At the Crossroads, and I have a copy of it here. And this is a photo that I took at Maplewood, actually, I think, where you cannot make a bad photo. It's impossible to make a bad. This year has been really beautiful too. So I thought I would read you some of the stuff from my book, and then you ask questions. But we could, if you want, you could just ask questions. You could just get my attention, and I'll answer that. Do you want me to start? Okay. One of the first poems in this book is called Nameless. The waiter did not know the name of the flowers that clung to the restaurant wall as though a child had crumpled red tissue paper and tucked it among the leaves of a vine. But he pointed out to me the poinsettias, topped with leaves like red and white stabers, guarding their secret flowers. He noticed them daily, and he liked them, but he didn't know their names either. All around us are unknown flowers, no less beautiful for the lack of a label. And perhaps flowers, like people, could wear little tags so that they could be greeted warmly by name, even the weeds. The next poem I'm going to read is about my father. I grew up on a boat, and he was the weatherman. There were nights on the boat when we listened to the weather on the shortwave radio, then went up on the deck, where my sister and I would lie on our backs and count the stars. Will it rain? Asks our mother, meaning, will we be stuck down below in the cramped cabin, playing cards and eating Oreos while the Tecumseh engine burns oil and drowns out other sounds? There should be a good breeze by noon, our father answers, meaning, we will skate the surface of the waves, sails raised fore and aft, my sister and I on the foredeck, backs on the cabin, faces to the wind. Our father always knew what the weather would be. Night after night, he disagreed with the weatherman. Most times he was right. There were nights we spent anchored in the harbor, the lights of cities far away, the Milky Way a trail of powdered sugar dividing the sky. Our mother taught us the patterns of the stars, their names and stories. Cassiopeia, her queenly chair. Orion, his dagger studded with pearls. The seven sisters of the Pleiades. In time, we'd go below to sleep in bunks, nestled in the bow of the boat. Tell me a story, my sister would say. And I would tell her about the gentle Queen Marie, who lived beneath the sea and spent her days weaving lace from seaweed and pearls. As I drifted off to sleep, I listened to the water lap the hull of the boat and felt the gentle slap of the ropes against the mast. Despite the forecast of the weatherman, tomorrow would be a nice day. Our father had said so. Does anyone's father tell the weather like that? They always argue with the weatherman. So a few of the poems are about my childhood, but I think it's most interesting what I discovered after moving to Minnesota. One of the first things that I did is I wrote some stories for the paper, and they sent me out to do whatever was the news of the day. Uh, and one time, somebody's farm was going to be designated a century farm, and of course, I, growing up in New Jersey, had absolutely no idea what a century farm was. But I learned, and I learned a great story. And here's a poem I wrote about it sometime later. How a Century Farm Begins. Inside a small farmhouse where women grind grain for the bread, while the wind turns the gristmill and the men wrest a living from the rock-laden soil through hot summers and bitter-cold winters, the grain, seed for next year's planting, lies protected from heat and cold and wet in a tightly sealed room with no windows in the middle of the house. Children are forbidden to play here. Mice and rodents dare not chance the wrath of the farmer's wife with her sharp blade. Like fairy tale princesses, the seeds slumber in safety, dreaming of languid summer days, blue skies, and occasional rain. In spring, the door to the room is opened, all but a small amount of the seed removed. The fields are sown, produce, grain to field livestock. Cows give birth, provide milk for their young, with enough left over for the human babies who will soon grow large enough to help plant the seed, cut the grain, thrash it, and store it for the next generation in the room with the windows in the middle of the house. And the inspiration for this book was Crossroads. So this is the poem that is titled Crossroads. Driving the back roads of west central Minnesota, it's impossible not to notice how many signs point to Wolf Lake. The town itself is small, with a newly remodeled gas station, a VFW, several abandoned buildings. The Kinnonen's general store is closed and shuttered, its second and last letters missing for decades. At the crossroads, signs point to other distant towns. All roads lead to Wolf Lake. All roads leave here too. Yay for Wolf Lake. You know where Wolf Lake is, right? Yeah. You have a song about Wolf Lake. Would you like
Yeah.
Susie, I agree.
the other thing that's very unique to Minnesota is tumbleweed. Actually, for the whole Western Plains, I think knows what a tumbleweed is. This morning, as the dawn appeared, I saw a 3-foot tumbleweed, its thinnest branches covered with a rime of morning frost, lodged between the markers in my garden. It must have blown here in the night, bouncing all the way from North Dakota, spinning and turning on the wind, trailing winter in its wake. Did it tumble its way along the highway, avoiding passenger cars and 18-wheelers? Or did it stick to the fields and roll across the empty plains until it skittered across the river into Minnesota? Like an exhausted messenger sent toward the king, the tumbleweed just sat there in my frozen garden, speechless, shivering at each gust of northern wind. As the sun melted northern frost, its limbs began to sparkle. Only then did it tell me why it had come. My next selections are about Slovenia. Do you have any other questions about Minnesota right now?
Slovenia?
Slovenia was the land that was the part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire that became Yugoslavia after World War One. But it was the original land of the Slovenes. And so when Yugoslavia broke up, which is within our lifetime, so we remember that. We should remember that. They kind of embraced their heritage. And actually, they were the only of the Balkan countries that didn't have any war. I think they had a 5-day conference or whatever. and then they have looked determinedly west ever since then. But it was really exciting for me to actually go there and be there because the a lot of the people in the country still remembered my family and my father's family. But that's not what these stories are. These are just, the first one is a history lesson. In Lake Bled, a 1,000-year-old church stands on its own island. Centuries ago, says the tour guide, pilgrims stopped here on their way to the Holy Land, ascending the steps to the chapel on their knees. What were they praying for? Safe journeys? Forgiveness of sins? What drove them to travel thousands of miles to a place they had never been? Perhaps to bring home a piece of saint's bone as a memento. Today, we row across the lake in handmade wooden boats. Pay a few coins to ring the bell in the steeple. Purchase photographs of the church as souvenirs of the peace that now blesses Slovenia. Surrounding the lake are the foothills of the Southern Alps. A short drive brings us to Bled Castle, where a miniature city fortified for defense by moat and drawbridge reminds us that life was not always so peaceful. 10 centuries ago, we're told, danger traveled these valleys. First the Huns, looking for young blondes they could breed, then soldiers of the Ottoman Empire taking young boys for their armies, girls for their harem. Napoleon marched his armies through here on his way to Russia. For the peasants who lived in the valleys, flight was their only defense, the castle their only refuge. We pile back into our cars and drive a few miles to the Vinkar Gorge, where the River Salva has cut a natural canyon through the limestone valley before emptying its green glacial waters into the Mediterranean. Some trees have died here lately, uprooted by a spring storm. 40 feet tall, they hang headfirst down the side of the gorge. During the war, some men died here, tumbling the slopes to the river until the green waters ran red. Sorry, that's kind of a sad part of our history. The next one is called The Bells of Slovenia. During World War I, the bronze bells that hung in every church in every town and valley were melted down to make weapons for the Great War. Imagine how astonished those bells must have been. Instead of peals of joy glorifying all creation, they were to become instruments of destruction. Not surprisingly, the spirit of each bell departed, flew up to the heavens to join other celestial spirits where they waited, warmed by starlight, protected by infinity. Later, when the war was over, the iron factory at Jesenice began making bells of steel to replace those taken from the churches during the war. Chapel bells, cathedral bells, small bells, large bells, even one weighing 6 tons. They made more than 2,000 bells, enough to replace all the bells in every church in Slovenia. When the spirits learned of this, they rejoiced. Back to earth they swarmed like meteorites, re-entering the atmosphere to add their warmth to the cold steel. There is a factory on the border of Slovenia, near the Austrian border, that the mined the iron for the big industry of that. It's called Jesenice, and that's where I got the idea of this poem. My parents or grandparents, great grandparents, actually came to what is now Yugoslavia through that area, through the mountains, and what they were looking for was jobs in the mines. It's just like people coming to Minnesota. Do anything. Oh, I missed one. I missed one. The Silence of Slovenia. I didn't read this one to you. In the silence of Slovenia, women sing an ancient song as they row their wooden boats across the lake. Poyezera, Poyezera, a tune my father still recalled after nearly 80 years in foreign lands. In the silence of Slovenia, church bells ring from dawn to dusk, like the ones that called to me at 17. Ave, Ave Vera Corpus, De Maria Reginae, the faith of centuries coursing through my veins. In the silence of Slovenia, the weight of history presses hard on each square foot of land where armies fall. But now, in gentle valleys, flowers bloom where once was blood, and soldiers paint shutters every year. That should have been after this first one. It was supposed to cheer you up, okay? So now you heard, as you heard the bells. The last one in the group of Slovenia is called Recognition. At the entrance to the market in Ljubljana, an old woman has settled herself on the pavement, a black and white kitten on her lap, aluminum cane by her side. She holds a stringed instrument made of wood. There are spaces for 8 strings, but only one is attached. The woman saws at it with a curved bow, making a small discordant sound. The belly of the instrument is papered with pictures: Blessed Virgin Mary, Saint Joseph, the Pope, and the headshot of a young girl, perhaps their daughter, with the heavy-lidded eyes and prominent nose that I had when I was 12. Instead of walking past the old woman, I stopped and dropped some coins at the box by her side, hold up my camera, make hand gestures, asking her permission for a photograph. As I snap the picture, she smiles, perhaps in recognition of my familiar features, or the shared resolution that now I know how I will look when I am an old woman. I need to get a drink. Any questions?
Did you
Comments?
go to Slovenia to visit? Did you go to Slovenia to visit?
Yeah, a couple of times.
What did you think of it? What did you think of it? Did you like the country?
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's absolutely beautiful.
How did
It's
you-
a park like the Rockies, the Canadian Rockies,
Cool.
limestone formations, and so it's a beautiful country.
They Catholic or Orthodox?
You have to speak up.
Are they Roman Catholic or Orthodox, sir?
Are they East Orthodox or Roman Catholic? The religion.
Oh, mostly Roman Catholic.
Lina, did you feel like when you
It's very close there. The other parts um of the old Yugoslavia are more Eastern Orthodox. It's very, very close.
See, Croatia has Roman Catholic too, because
Yeah.
you think of Rudy Perpich,
Yeah.
and you were gonna ask, I was just gonna ask, did you feel like you were at home? Did you feel like you were home in a way
I did.
in Slavia?
We took Jerome, my husband, we took a train. We first went to Germany, where his family was from, and then we took the train through Germany till we get to the Austrian border and took it into Yugoslavia. And as our train was going into uh, Austro-Hungary area, I could feel it. I just felt amazing connection with it.
And how old was your dad when he left?
My father was 18 when he came to this country. He had already served 2 years in the Austrian Navy, and of course that side lost the war.
Mhm.
And they had planned to come to this country. I can't remember exactly how many years they waited to do that. With he was the oldest, and a younger brother and a younger sister, and mother and father. And at the last moment, my father was not allowed to leave. And he said to his grandmother, to my grandmother, "You go anyway." So they did.
Yeah.
They got on a ship and they went to, they came to New York, but they actually unloaded at Brooklyn, of all places. I guess there were a lot of different ports where people came to. And the first people that they saw were Halloweeners because it was Halloween.
Oh,
And he thought, the youngers, because they thought that's how New York was. Very odd. That would make an interesting poem.
So how do you start writing when you get an inspiration? Do you use paper and pencil or computer? How do you turn your ideas into a written?
Oh, because they keep going through my head. I do, and then I can't read it. Oh, I have terrible handwriting. I flunked penmanship in fifth grade, and I have not improved since. But I have really enjoyed the computer. And then I finally get it onto the computer where I can read it over and over again, and then I reread and rewrite. I know there are poets, some that I like very much, who say that they don't edit anything, and I think they are lying. Because I think what it is that they mean, oh, I don't edit it on paper because they've thought about it, But then again, it's possible that some poets might just get a flash and that was it. But I'm not like that.
I've found that I'll get ideas at a place that I can't write.
Yeah.
Other than I've got a little notebook and I'll write just the title or the idea or the person
Yeah.
that I want to write about. And
Right.
then later on, when I have free time,
Yeah.
then I'll put it,
Yeah.
make it into something.
I think any technique is worth. I've read about a lot. Mary Oliver, she rewrites and rewrite, and but some don't. It's different.
I have a question. A lot of schools teach poetry wrong, I think, because by the time I was done learning about poetry, I hated it and it took me years to it.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of curious. There's different types of poems. Like some seem more rhyming and some more prose poem, I guess. What are the types of poems and what makes you choose
Well, originally,
haiku, stuff like that?
the idea was to be a poem was voice, was a way to remember a story and tell people from far away or your neighbors or whatever like that. And the best way to do that, or the accepted way to do that, got to be like something that you rhyme so you could remember it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then in the 20th century, there was different kind of different ways of looking at poetry. First of all, we didn't have clay tablets anymore. We had a little bit more sophisticated ways to do that. And I think it was Rudyard Kipling who said that or somebody said that he took the training wheels off of poetry. So now I think there are different people come back and study it and decide that it's this way, it's that way, and personally, I think it's whatever comes out of your heart.
Cool.
And that somebody understands that it's worth keeping. I tend to have, I think, some poetry that has some rhyme and some rhythm. Some of it you could hear when I talk. You can kind of hear I can hear Kip making a song out of it because he's a writer, songwriter. And sometimes it's just it's like the beat. It's like a walk, we walk. We have beats our whole life too. Because we're always walking. So we have that to remind us of time in a way. So mine is not usually rhyming poetry, but usually I like to have some kind of something. I don't know what it's called yet. But I have another poem to read you. You want to hear that? This is about Sarasota Bay, where I spend the winters sometimes. But it really could be about any kind of bay. But this bay has something for everyone. Fish for the pelicans, the ducks and the gulls, the herons who wait at the shoreline, fishing boats, crab boats, leaving each dawn with a clatter of nets and lazy black smoke that lays on the water when the diesels cough their first good breath of the morning. Motorboats and sailboats, little novice sailors who flutter like butterflies in the light afternoon breeze while their instructor shouts lessons through a bullhorn. The kayaks, paddleboards, the jet boat with its air-blowing engine, drawing hostile looks from tourists perched on their verandas. A photographer captures an osprey as it snatches a fish from the water. Another poses a working wedding couple on the broken pilings of the old fishing pier. Cruise ships, dining rooms that move from pier to pier, getting fatter each year. Old men and young children fishing under the bridge at sunset. And dolphins, especially the dolphins, turning graceful cartwheels in the water, surfacing now and again the visible crescent of a great submerged paddle wheel. Evening cruise. Along the waterfront, cruise ships with polished chrome and spotless hulls wait for evening passengers to shuffle up the ramp. Some a little tipsy already, but happy to be here, to be wine and dine, while an invisible loudspeaker claims to be the captain and tells them what a good time they are going to have. On every piling, a pelican looks on, head tucked in his neck. Another one about water. This is called Storm over Sarasota Bay. This morning, the fog smoothed the bay surface until it gleamed like dull aluminum. Later, the wind shifted to the north, backcombing the palm trees. Now, waves pound the shoreline, drowning all other sounds. I watch as two kayaks skim toward shore, yellow-bodied insects with flashing limbs. Sturdy fishing boats return to safe harbor, cheated again of a good day's catch. Even the pelicans are forced to beat a wing or two to stay aloft. I like the sound of the sea at work, hammering the sand, working up a sweat. It's tough on shorebirds, who on gentler days pick delicately at water's edge in search of tasty morsels. By noon, the sea has turned a killer green. A cowboy in a speedboat heads towards open water, tossing waves aside like feathers. All day the sea churns. Each sharply pointed wave spits foam as it gives another tug at the bottom, turning the water brown. Breakers crest higher and further from the beach. Now and then, there's a brief breathing space, no bigger than a comma. A pelican skims closer to the waves, lands in the trough between jagged trees. Perhaps something good will be stirred up by all this activity. By late afternoon, the sky has changed. Patches of blue appear. Clouds lighten, but the sea is still mad. It throbs and squirms as though there are monsters to restrain. Water roils and boils as old insults are recalled. Toxic oil spills, atomic bomb tests. When I was a child, they used to explode old bombs on the Chesapeake Bay. A day later, fish would float belly up on the outgoing tide. Lifeless eyes turned up to heaven. All the seas are connected. Each remembers the pain done to another. Kind of a sad message. I like to write about birds too. Watching the Aninga bird in Sarasota. For 2 hours every day that I am here, the Aninga perches on the seawall above the bay, turning this way and that, until he's found the perfect angle of the sun. He switches his long neck to check that no one is watching. What is this? He's vain? Head of a snake? Body gone south like a pear? He unfolds wings like a bat, but beneath his dull dark wrapper lurk white feathers like ivory, stolen from Africa, hidden from poachers. He shows these treasures to no one but the sea. I have one more bird poem. Can you handle that? The white ibis. As soon as I leave the pool, the white ibis returns, hops to the top of the aluminum ladder, stands poised on one orange leg, looks down his curved orange beak at the world. Satisfied all is well, he picks his way along the inner rim of the pool, sipping chlorinated water like champagne. When no one is looking, he lights a long cigarillo and blows smoke circles at the sun. Poetry can be fun, is fun too.
We've got time for more if you want to.
Do you have any other questions or comments? You have to talk up, my ears are clogging up. Okay.
Questions right now?
Are these all in the book that you?
He wants to know if all these poems are in the book.
Yes, all of these poems are in this book, At the Crossroads. I have 2 copies here, and I ordered more, so they got more. But you can also order them on Amazon.
Okay.
You just have to put in At this Crossroads by Lina Belar, and it'll take you right to it. Same price. Actually, there's no shipping charges if you pick them up on Amazon. If you're an Amazon member, right? Or Prime member,
25, yeah.
whatever it is.
You're right.
But then I can't get it. I have to find you to get you it signed.
You have to do that.
Yeah.
If you know where I live at the commercial apartments, and that could be a whole another set of poems by itself. It's just fascinating. It's wonderful. People are wonderful. And now there's a whole bunch of, what is it, 16 or 18 people who live there. It's a book. If I have the time or the energy to write a book, it would make a great book. But it'll definitely make a couple of poems.
Stories from home.
Stories from Home is the title she has for your future book.
Huh?
Your future book of poetry about your home. Stories from Home is the title.
Yeah, stories.
Has-
Good. A good title of. I do have a series of poems that I hope to have published. I sent it to the editor, and she likes it, but has, of course, suggestions for change. So we'll see if that happens within the year, so that would be great. But tentatively, the title is The Future of the World. And here is a poem about that. I'm waiting for the day you can't buy pens anymore. Who needs a writing instrument when telepathy replaces speech? Already, most communication has been reduced to the fingertip. With one swipe, you can sign your name, message a friend, capture a picture. Pens and pencils are but crutches for those unable to see how evolution is at work. The tap follows a thought, and soon the tips of our fingers will become the conduit for all that is glorious and beautiful in our mind, as well as the sad and forlorn. From final tap to telepathy, we will once again be able to hear the vast symphony of the earth as it goes about its business of living and eating and dying. As I write this, I'm watching a great blue heron poised at water's edge, waves breaking across his bony feet, waiting for the sea to bring him his breakfast. Can I stop?
Do you want to do one more final poem?
I have one final poem.
Okay. Finale, and then any questions?
It's called Not Alone. Maybe I have two. Ah, I have one called Final Words.
Okay, so we'll save that for after the questions.
Okay, so Not Alone is the name of this poem. The traffic on the nearby bridge thrums with the sound of trucks and motorcycles. It's a sound that says you're not alone. But the sound I want to hear is the sound of the surf, the one that never lies, the ones that says you are alone. And yet, are we not also part of you? The water and minerals that float in your veins are also found in the creatures of the sea, even the scallop who likes his cadmium, even the rare ones like you.
So, who were some of the poets that influenced you when you were younger? Some of the poets that you were inspired by, that you enjoyed growing up when you were younger or when you got into poetry? Who were
When I started, well, Mary Oliver was a great influence on me. Yeah, she was a Billy Cohen, some Minnesota poets, Mark Finns. I know Mark Finns. I worked with him. He's really been.
Is he still alive?
Yes, he's still alive. He's older, like all of us. Um, I've
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
He was a poetry editor
yeah,
and a poet.
yeah. You're a poet.
Well, I'm a ballad
Yeah.
writer.
music?
Doesn't have to be set to me.
Okay.
Yeah, you got to tell a story concisely.
I'm probably forgetting people that I should be naming, but Bill Holm, he's a well-known, a well-respected poet. Um, so here's my final words. If I had to choose a place for one final meal, I'd pick a small club with fewer than 20 tables, waiters who smile when they talk about the chef, and a three-piece jazz combo playing old standards in the corner. If I have the chance for one more boat ride, I think it should be at evening in a canoe on a lake, with a breeze that barely ruffles the water, and a loon calling his long, mournful cry in the distance. As I think about this, a fly, no bigger than a seed, lands in my cup and thinks as though he carries a great weight. Concerned he might drown, I stick in my thumb and lift him from my now tepid tea. Gossamer wings, like silk fans, are matted to his body. I watch him crawl from one side of my thumb to the other. When he reaches my nail, he scurries bravely across, and I, in order to help keep his world right side up, rotate my hand as needed. At the callus where my pen usually rests, he stops, and taking his time, lifts one thin leg at a time, shakes a few fine droplets from each, then flicks his wings and flies away. And I think if I have time for one more poem, perhaps I will write about falling in love. So much. I love writing poems and I love reading it. I hope you've enjoyed listening to it too.
Thank you.
So thank you so much.
So shall we just end a little bit early then? Do you want to just end a little bit early then? Does anybody have any questions?
I was wondering, you said, that your family in, Slovenia, they migrated from elsewhere in Yugoslavia to work in the mines in Slovenia. Did I hear that?
Yeah, in the days of the German Empire, I think some forebearers of my family lived in Germany. I'm not sure exactly where, but they went to what is now Slovenia and the Alps for the cinnabar mines, mercury. That was, and the iron mines. So that's how they got there. But they could not say the name. They were Wellers at that time, but the Slovenians could not say the Weller sound. So the name ended up Belar, which is why you don't see very many because it was a made up name a couple of centuries ago.
Well, that's the hardest part of trying to figure out your ancestry in Europe because the borders kept changing. Because Germany was the Principality and it was the
Right.
and yeah, Empire.
Since I first learned about it, this has changed.
Yeah,
The Vikings left their seed everywhere.
and the Romans, the Yells, the Huns, the Mongols.
Yeah. They should do them with the elastic bands. You could just stretch them.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I've enjoyed it today. Nice to see everyone.
Hey, big round of applause.
Thank you. And applause from Newsroom.